Hi, and welcome to Bounce Forward with me, Tiff Hall. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I'm recording this podcast, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to elders, past and present. Now, today I'm super excited because I am chatting to Lyndi Cohen. She is known as the Nude Nutritionist on Instagram and TV. She is a dietitian and nutritionist, and she has her Bachelor of Nutrition and Dietetics. She's accredited, and she was voted one of Australia's top 25 most influential people. She's also a best-selling author of the book, Your Weight Is Not the Problem. And I am personally such a fan of Lyndi's. I follow her. I love what she stands for, and I cannot wait to chat to her today. Lyndi, I'm so excited you're joining Bounce Forward. I'm a big fan of everything that you're doing at the moment, and I wanted to kick it off by starting to talk about finding some food freedom and overcoming that all or nothing attitude. Now, I read that you were put on your first diet when you were 11 years old, which is just amazing. What were the food restrictions that you were given at that time?
Amazing, isn't it? And also pretty normal. That's kind of the wild thing. When I started talking about the fact that I went to my first nutritionist when I was 11. I was given a meal plan. I was told this is a healthy eating plan. This is just a lifestyle approach. And yet I was told to weigh out my food, to weigh myself in weekly at my nutritionist appointments. And she looked me blank in the face and she said, you know what, your BMI is well within the healthy range, but I understand that you want to be thin. And I nodded earnestly as an 11-year-old, because already at that point I'd known for many years that we live in a world that thinks, being thin is something that you will unlock all of these opportunities by being thin. So I really wanted that. Who cared if I was already healthy? And so then we endeavored in this process. And you know what happened is I was told to meticulously keep a diary, a food plan. I was really such a good girl. I promise I was trying my best to make everyone around me really happy. And I did lose a little bit of weight, but it didn't take long before my little interest in nutrition turned into food obsession. And I was walking myself to school and walking myself back from school. I knew the calories of absolutely every food, and I was still in primary school. And when I speak to other women, they just say, me too, me too. I grew up in a family where I got comments about my weight, where I always felt like I would be happier if I weighed less. And so my story just feels a bit like a lot of other women's stories.
And then did that initiate more diets through teenage years and things? You were on more diets, and did any of them ever work?
Well, they all worked. Diets do work. It's kind of, I know this phrase get thrown around by the non-diet community that diets don't work. Oh no, they absolutely work. They are very effective at working. And this is why we keep going back to them once we've regained the weight, because we go, oh, but I lost 20 kilograms by doing that approach. And I did. I tried many, many diets. I mean, you name a diet, I've tried it. I got the t-shirts. It's low carb, calorie counting, silly little diets where I could only eat certain foods in a day, any kind of thing. I was willing to give it a crack, and a crack I did. And I was very good at dieting until my metabolism would slow, because we have a whole bunch of very nifty processes in our bodies to try and help prevent us from losing weight. Our body likes us to stay alive. Who knew? How wild. Yeah. And so when it gets a whiff of any restriction, it interprets that as a famine. We know. And so it slows metabolism. It increases cravings for the very foods you're telling yourself you're not allowed to eat. It boosts ghrelin, your hunger hormone, so you are hungrier, reducing leptin at the same time, your satiation hormone. So if you feel crazy around food when you're on a diet, you reach that point, you hit that weight loss plateau, you're going, oh my goodness. Suddenly you're hungrier than you've ever been. And this is where we often see people regaining more weight than they originally lost, which is the trend. So yes, diets all work, and I tried them all, but they always left me heavier than before I started. So much so that by the time I was 21, a decade after I started dieting, I was now categorically morbidly obese. I mean, I think the BMI is BS, but just it's a reference point that I basically started at a healthy weight and gained 20 kilograms or 40 pounds in the process.
So what was your turning point, Lyndi? How did you start a recovery from all of that?
Well, I remember I went into Vinnie's,
Mm-hmm.
an op shop, to go and try find something to wear to my friend's 21st. And I looked in the mirror and I just hated the person I saw there. I thought, I am so committed. I drove straight to the doctor's and I just waited there for an appointment. And I walked in and he said, "Why don't you try this diet my wife is having success with?" And I wanted to scream, I have tried all of the things. I later realized that I had binge eating disorder. And when I even went to my doctor's appointment, he completely misunderstood that there was an underlying eating disorder that had emerged, that it wasn't a matter of me not having good willpower, of me not trying enough. And I think, this is why I do all my work, because I think we look at people who are in larger bodies, we think, oh, I always felt like people saying, "Why haven't you tried?" And the amount we have tried and we've been given the wrong approach. And once I finally reached this rock bottom, I thought, you know what? I've been a good girl. I've listened to all of your tips and advice, diet people. I have been listening and you have led me astray. What if I just do the opposite of everything you've been telling me to do? And there was a period where I had to go into like a bit of a refeeding period where I had to give myself full permission to eat everything and anything, and healthy eating went out the window because I was so everything, all the rules around nutrition, food was good, food was bad, exercise was punishment. I kind of had to get a clean slate and then rebuild my relationship with food once I had reintroduced all those foods again.
Wow. So let's talk about the all or nothing attitude. What is it exactly?
Well, I think any dieter is going to be very familiar with the all or nothing approach. It's when every Monday it feels like we're starting a new diet from scratch, or every day, we're lying in bed at night, beating ourselves up before ruining yet again. Perhaps you wake up in the morning, you're like, I'm good in the morning. You yourself a healthy little breakfast. But by lunchtime, you're noticing, getting a little bit hungry. But by the time you get home in the afternoon, you end up face planting into the pantry. You can't stop eating. You're eating so much while you're cooking your food that you're not even hungry by the time you get to dinner. You sit in front of the TV, you're snacking, and you go to bed again feeling so guilty and wishing you could do better. And we repeat the cycle again and again. And for me, this is very much the epitome of the all or nothing approach, where we think that in order to be healthy, we need to do everything perfectly. We need to go so hard. I do think that health magazines, I think health influencers have a lot to blame here in making health so unattainable and so inaccessible that people are like, I'm either exercising and eating perfectly or I'm doing nothing. I'm eating Wurundjeri straight out of the pub. There is no in between for me. And what I'm very interested in as a dietitian is helping people find healthy enough. And you, Tiff, you are so good at this. This is your thing as well. It's this idea of going a 20-minute workout that you enjoy is better than an hour at the gym that never happens. A slow walk that makes you feel good is always better than something that we're never going to get around to doing that HIIT session that you've been avoiding. And eating a salad, and if you mean to get that with a side serving of chips, if that's what helps you feel like you're getting that balance in, then I'm all for that, whereas eating is like salad dressing on the side, no crispy bits, be careful of absolutely.
Because I thought of you last night when I had my dinner and I put sweet chili sauce on my veggies, and you said in one of your fantastic videos on Instagram, like, just because you've put some sauce on your veggies, it doesn't mean they're less healthy, And I even felt like, what are you doing, Tiff? Like, I had those thoughts and I'm like, relax. I'm always having to talk to myself about it. So you're helping so many people, Lyndi. If you've got the all or nothing attitude, what can you do about it with food? Like, how do you start those steps to break that cycle?
Well, I think you're spot on with the sweet chili sauce example. It is the catching yourself in those moments where you're going, I'm being pretty harsh on myself and expecting this perfect eating. And what if I just softened my boundaries around food a little bit, including sweet chili, including dressing, including an extra serve of carbohydrates? I always think if adding in 200 calories saves you a 2,000 calorie binge, you win, my friends. You win, you win, you win.
That is amazing. Yeah.
So you've got to think about it like that. I think about it as sacrificial calories. And I think it really helps you in the long term because, the diet brain's like, no, but I've been so good. I'm just going to keep being good. I did this thing when I was recovering from binge eating where I started adding some chocolate onto my cappuccino in the morning, and you're going to go, that's not a big deal. But it sent a message to my brain that chocolate is part of my life. It's not something that's ever going to be eliminated, because I am a chocolate fiend. I love it. And a life without chocolate is not one I want to live.
No.
And so it's about integrating. One of the tips I think is a very useful thing if you're struggling with binge eating, the all or nothing mindset, pick the food you feel the most crazy around. It could be peanut butter, could be bread, could be cereal, chippies, whatever it is. And I want you to go and make a concerted effort to go and eat this food out in public. So go to a cafe, go to a restaurant. You don't have to be with anyone you know. But what we often do with these foods, we put them on a pedestal. These are naughty foods. We never allow ourselves to eat them. And when we do, we're always hiding in secret so no one can see how bad we're being. What we do by normalizing them, by going eating it at a cafe, you send a message to your brain to say this food is allowed. You send a message to the people around you to say, I'm someone who's allowed to eat this food. It sounds very simple, but ordering yourself some peanut butter on toast, reintegrating those forbidden foods into your diet can really help you feel a lot more in control around them. And then your body, like we talked about, your body doesn't think it's in famine. It can relax. That process, by the way, of helping your body learn that it's no longer in famine can take anywhere. For some people, it's one meal. Let's say you've never had a struggle with food. Within one meal, you can fix that. But for people like me who have dieted for many, many years, breaking out of that switch where your body thinks you're in famine can take a week, but most likely it's going to take a month to 3 months. Wow. So if you've ever been on a diet and you go, suddenly you wake up one morning, you can't stop thinking about food, just know you have triggered yourself into that little starvation switch, I call it. And to turn it off, you need to refeed yourself. Do tricks like this before you start to go, I'm not thinking about food all the time. I can relax and your metabolism will come back to equilibrium.
Yeah, that's a fantastic tip. Thanks so much for listening to Bounce Forward. Now, today, this was part 1 of my chat with Lyndi, and I loved everything we spoke about, but there's still so much more to unpack. So stay tuned for part 2 coming soon. I love having your company, so please DM me on Instagram at tiffhall_xo and let me know what topics you'd love me to cover. Don't forget to rate and review me on your podcast app. Speak soon. Happy days.